We said? Okay.
Nice.
Great.
Ready.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the evening session of the Nelson County Board of Supervisors. First order of business is public comments. I have 7 names of people that have signed up. This is just to let you know that the public hearings are going to be separate. So if you have anything you'd like to say about the 2 items upon which we have public hearings tonight, please don't talk about it during public comments. Hold it for the public hearing. For the public comments, limited to 3 minutes. We're going to be fairly strict about that, but the chair can let you go on a little bit at the chair's discretion. And you need to give your name and your address before you start. And so we will start the public comment period with the first person signed up, who's Ann Norwood.
Good evening. Get my glasses off so I can read. My name is Ann Norwood. I live at 3509 Stagebridge Road in Livingston. I wanted to speak to you about a concern I have regarding the current zoning ordinances, specifically as they relate to the topic of vacation homes versus hotels. I'm going to give you a couple of definitions from the bylaws. A motel is one or more buildings containing sleeping rooms designed for or used by automobile tourists or transients. They have convenient parking and they have cooking facilities. A hotel is any hotel and or motel, so included in the hotel, or other place used for overnight lodging, which is rented to transients, is not a residence, and where the renting of the structure or structures is the primary use of the property. Hotels and motels require a special use permit as they are commercial in nature. A vacation home is a house rented to transients. Rental arrangements are made for the entire house, not by room. Vacation homes are currently listed as by right privileges. The term was added in 2016 to allow private homeowners to rent a room in their house, like an Airbnb room, or even rent the whole house if they wanted. Currently, there are no specifically stated limits to the number of vacation homes per property. Common sense would say that the number of rental homes should be in line with the guidelines of the property division rights and zoning rules. However, commercial enterprises are buying land and planning to build large numbers of houses for the sole purpose of renting them. In other words, they want to build hotels. These projects should require full special use permit examination by the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors, and the public, but instead are being treated as a by right project with limited oversight. If these projects fail and the properties are eventually subdivided, the multiple dwellings will be out of compliance with current division right guidelines. Areas that would never have allowed this density of houses will now be stuck with an unapproved subdivision. I ask you to consider strengthening the language in the new comprehensive plan to align the number of allowed vacation homes with the intended limits of existing property division rights. I ask you to recognize attempts by commercial businesses to exploit the ordinances by building resort hotel communities as by right projects without the input of you, the Planning Commission, and the citizens of Nelson. And I ask you to commit to following the intent of the Nelson County ordinances to allow thoughtful and appropriate development while preserving and protecting the character of this beautiful place. Thank you.
If you'd like to, if you've prepared your comments ahead of time in writing, you could give those to Grace and that would help her immensely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Barbara Larson.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Larson. My husband and I reside at 477 Stagebridge Road in Livingston, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm here to express my opposition to the special use permit application submitted on behalf of Rockfish Ranch, a private entity managed by the Stay Charlottesville Management Group. The proposed development would include a wedding venue, 26 vacation rental homes, an office building, and a 75-space parking lot. The proposal calls for a new entrance to the property onto Stagebridge Road. As you know, the property is zoned A1 agricultural. Rockfish Ranch LLC contends that they have the right to construct vacation rental structures on agricultural property because they are not permanent structures. Regardless of what they're called, Rockfish Ranch is essentially proposing a subdivision along the Rockfish River on agricultural land. These rentals could be occupied for most days of the year by individuals from outside of Nelson County. We contend that this use would be more detrimental to the environment, nearby property owners, and roadways than if they were permanent structures. Rockfish Ranch's application states that, quote, visitors to the development will be encouraged to park and leave their vehicles and spend the weekend walking. As lovely as that sounds, I'm skeptical. We live in a car culture and visitors are far more likely to drive to other locations across Nelson County. One only has to visit any hospitality business along 151 on any given Saturday to know what I mean. We live here because we love the rural character of our part of Nelson County. Stagebridge Road is a country road. A wedding venue with the activity and alcohol that comes with it is not compatible with our neighborhood. The public safety requirements will further stretch our sheriff's resources, and we are concerned about the safety of residents along Stagebridge Road, particularly of children. We urge the supervisors to deny this application until a new comprehensive plan is complete. Any new plan should reconsider the status of vacation property and recognize its impact on the character of our region. We welcome growth, but please think about who is driving that growth. Are we welcoming families and businesses to support those families, or corporations that will develop land to support transient visitors? Once the development occurs, the character of our neighborhood will be forever changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Hevner.
Michael Hevner, 8 Isle Road, 1146 8 Isle Road, Palmer. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for what you're doing, for your service, and the amount of time you put in on the efforts and on behalf of Nelson County. Pastor for 14 years and co-founder of City Elders, and we've been praying for you guys and praying for our county in whole. I'd like to offer a couple of things. One, the meeting, or I guess the afternoon meeting, they talked about the statute. And I've been in Nelson County for 14 years, so not a lifelong Nelson County person, but Nelson County has definitely grown on me. And I never knew there was a statue there until it was brought up the first time. I don't think that that this is going to divide our county. I think it is shining a light on the division that's there already. And I think this is pure politics, the debate, whether you're for or against, and whatever decision that's made is going to end up in the courts. And I just don't want to see that divide grow. I don't know the answer to that. You're our guys. And and that definitely falls to you guys, and I don't envy that decision. But there have been good folks that are on either side of this debate, so we will definitely pray for wisdom that you guys would, whatever happens, whether it's you make the decision or put it on the vote, put it on for the voters, put it on the ballot. I don't know what all of that entails, but I think that would be something that would give every Nelson County person a say. Also, that's it. I just wanted to thank you guys and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Harry Powell.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Yeah,
I guess.
Give us your address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Harry Powell, 4011 Stagebridge Road, Shipman, 22971. And so addressing some of the things that Ann Norwood spoke about, and I have a concern, to be brutally honest. I'm an adjacent property owner and one that would be severely affected by this proposal that's going in near us. But what I really want to talk about is more philosophical, because we're seeing an influx of these very, very large, well-heeled, well-financed, extremely wealthy corporations coming in and buying up the open land that is some of the most beautiful part of Nelson County that we appreciate, to put in these developments, and they appear to be skirting, shall we say, the edge of our zoning ordinances, and putting in developments that will have profound impact on the neighbors and the county and the traffic and the roads and everything else. Well, when we look at the long term, what are these things creating? They'll create, in the short term, some construction jobs. There's no doubt about that. And maybe some road construction, road work, heavy equipment, carpentry, and so forth. But long term, what are they bringing us? They're bringing us the potential for a very few low-paid, almost essential housekeeping jobs. And I don't think that's a good direction for the county to take. I think, as I stated here a couple of years ago, I think we need to be looking to get more small, high-tech industries in that can bring in really good paying jobs and have very, very little impact on the neighbors. And I think that's something we need to look at and think about very carefully before we approve developments like the one that's being proposed for Stage Bridge. Thanks.
Thank you. Ann Landry.
The sign-up sheet was not very clear. I'm really here to speak on the cigarette tax. So should I speak now or later?
You should speak later during the
Okay,
public hearing.
thank
Thank you. Pam Bryce. Okay. And Dave Landry.
Same thing.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment?
That's what's out there, right away. Thomas Nelson, 304 Deerwood Court in Roseland. For a number of years, I've been doing genealogy going through the cemeteries. I'm not representing American Legion, city elders, which I'm a member of, and other groups, Rotans. But every year at Memorial Day, and this next year, we will have 6 cemeteries in which flags are placed at soldiers' graves. And when we go there, we honor the soldiers no matter which war they were in. So there's quite a few Confederate States of America soldiers, there's Vietnam, there's World War I, there's all sorts of ones. So when we stand in front of them and we salute the soldier and place a flag at his grave, we're honoring their efforts in a war. So there's hundreds and hundreds of Confederate soldiers that are in the cemeteries in our county. There's one Union soldier, I don't know exactly where it is, but I know there's a Union soldier there. When you honor a soldier, you don't say, what political stance you were in. Were you trying to fight because you're trying to save your homeland in Virginia or what? But we do honor the soldier. If you were to go ahead with political stance on this, and you're saying, well, at some point, you were a Confederate, therefore we won't honor you because that wouldn't be politically correct. That's not what I believe. I believe there's a soldier who fought for his family, his children, his land, in the state of Virginia. Whether his stance were other ways, that's to be seen. But when we start talking about the statue, that represents many, many, many hundreds of soldiers that are out there buried. So if you were to do something with the statue, or you could also decide, well, we're going to have to blackball, or whatever you want to call it, the Confederate graves. They're out there. And yes, that's a matter of fact. The statue represents them. If there were any others, I understand monuments out there for other wars. I don't know where they all are, but in Scotland, I believe. So I do support preserving what we have and just leave it the way it is and tabling it. So I don't agree with any of you that say we need to do something. We need just to honor these soldiers who fought for their families and the country. Thank you.
Thank you. If nobody else wants to speak, I will close the public comments. And that takes us up to the public hearings. The first is fiscal year 21-22 budget amendment.
All right,
As noted, this is the public hearing on a budget amendment to our 2021-22 budget. We're holding a public hearing tonight on the proposed FY22 budget amendment for State Code Section 15.2-2507, which says that any budget amendment which exceeds 1% of the total expenditures shown in the currently adopted budget must be considered following public notice at least 7 days prior to the meeting date, and the board may adopt the amendment at the advertised meeting following conduct of the public hearing. So our budget amendment public hearing notice was published in the September 2nd edition of the Nelson County Times, which was 12 days prior to tonight's meeting. Our total expenditure shown in our currently adopted budget is $55,951,598.53. And this total excludes transfers to other agencies. Our 1% threshold of total expenditures would then be $559,515.99. The total budget amendment request is $2,387,176.55 in elementary and secondary school emergency relief 2 funds, which were authorized by the Federal 2021 Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. The total school budget after this amendment would be $30,298,260.08. These funds are proposed to be used for expenditures due to the public health emergency known as coronavirus 2019 or COVID-19 for the following major expenditure categories. For school instruction, $1,515,900. School transportation, $294,437.55. School administration, $180,000. Technology, $346,839. Operations and maintenance, $50,000, for, again, a total of $2,387,176.55. And I will defer to the school personnel in attendance if you have specific questions related to these expenditures. So next steps would be for the board to conduct a public hearing, obtain input from school division staff if desired, consider adoption of Resolution 2021-50, which is an amendment of the fiscal year 2021-22 budget, which staff recommends favorable consideration of. That's it.
Does the board have any questions of Ms. McGarrett? Would the school administration like to speak to this?
Good afternoon. We did present to the County Administrative Office a request for ESSER 2 funding, which was a part of the Coronavirus Relief Act. The funds have a limited duration. Most of the ESSER 2 has to be spent by September of 2023. There will be an additional request coming to the board for the American Rescue Plan, and that amount will be $3,698,763. So that will require an additional public hearing. We have submitted our application to the state and are waiting for that to be approved. So sorry that it's coming in increments and you're having to go through multiple steps to get all of the grant funding approved. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have over the source of the funding and how they were to be used.
What is the total dollar amount that we're getting just from the American Rescue Plan? Or I mean, the school system, excuse me.
American Rescue Plan is $3,698,763.
So, you don't know what, I'm just curious as to how much COVID relief over the last year it was, but the first round.
The very first round was $409,817.76.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. That's it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Urban.
Thank you.
Okay, I will open the public hearing on Budget Amendment R 2021-50. Anyone like to speak to this during the public hearing? Okay, I will close comments.
Okay, yep. Mr. Chairman, obviously this is just COVID relief money. We gotta use it. They need it. If we don't use it, they don't get it. So, also, by the way, thanks for the crowd tonight. We were kind of expecting nobody. So, it's nice to have some faces in the room. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve R 2021-50 as presented.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Okay, our second public hearing is an ordinance which approves the formation of a joint entity to be known as the Blue Ridge Cigarette Tax Board. O 2021-07.
As Mr. Reed said, the ordinance, if enacted, would authorize the county's membership in a regional cigarette tax board, Blue Ridge Cigarette Tax Board. As the board knows, recent legislative changes by the state granted counties equal taxing authority with municipalities, and among those taxing new powers are the ability to implement a local cigarette tax. The concept here is to join a regional entity to administer the tax. The board, if this ordinance is approved, would at the next meeting in October consider setting the local cigarette tax rate. Establishment of the regional entity requires 6 members. To date, Albemarle and Augusta counties have approved their membership in the regional entity. Green, Orange, and Fluvanna are considering this same subject this week. Madison County will consider it in October, and Charlottesville City, which already has the tax, we're not certain when their city council is going to take this up. But as I said, it requires the approval of 6 jurisdictions. Enactment of the ordinance would also grant authority to my position with the chairman to sign the regional agreement, which provides for the establishment of the administrative and operational processes of the regional tax entity. That in a nutshell is essentially what the board's going to consider after the public hearing.
Now, if you can echo, after the public hearing, this does not relate to setting a rate.
Right.
Membership of this, and I think it's important that we echo that, membership of this committee does not set a rate. That is still under the authority of this board, correct?
That's correct.
Got it. So we are not voting on a tax today. We are voting on being part of a regional discussion and participating in that.
Yeah, each locality will set its own cigarette tax. The regional entity would then administer the tax on behalf of the participating members.
Yes.
And we provided the board with the regional planning district commission staff has worked to develop this. And for Nelson, the estimates, which is probably more to be considered at the ensuing meeting if this ordinance is enacted. Estimates for Nelson after year 1 would be revenue generation of about $136,000 per year with a plus or minus 20% variance. We won't know for sure until the tax is implemented and there's a few years of experience, if the board decides to proceed with this.
What would be the cost of collecting the tax?
The annual cost, it's in the information we gave the board. It's somewhat dependent on how many staff ultimately pertaining to administer the tax within the regional entity. I believe it's in the neighborhood of a couple $100,000, $150,000 to $200,000 a year. I have to look at it more closely, but so I recall that's the estimate. And a percentage share would be taken from each participating locality.
So that number, as you said, that's for the entire region.
Right.
$150,000 over the entire region cost. Got it.
It says here 117,190.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. Very far right. So
It could grow, of course, in certain years, but
for Nelson County specifically, it says $5,000.
questions? So it's noted, if I may, it's an act, consideration to enact ordinance 02107 to authorize the county's participation in the blue lit cigarette tax.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2021-07. And I will take the first three people who signed up previously to go first during the public hearing. And so we'll start with Ann Lambert.
Ann Landry, I live in Nelly's Ford, and I'd like to read
And
from.
what is your address?
Well, it's on the sign-up sheet. So I'd like.
It's not, it just says no.
Oh, well, it's Nelly's Ford. Why do you need my full address?
Just for public record.
Why? I pay taxes. You have this. You have the record. You don't need it unless you can show me a reason why you need it. So I'd like to go on.
So it's so that we know that you're a resident of Nelson County.
Oh, would you like to see my driver's license?
Does it have your address on it?
Yes, it does.
You can
Okay,
just tell.
pull that out, okay? So while he's getting my license, and you must have my address, why would I go to another county and speak? That's absurd. But anyway, I will read my opinion op-ed that was posted in the Daily Progress regarding the cigarette tax. My opinion is it's more bureaucracy, little help. And I'm speaking from experience. Some people believe that taxing will deter smoking. Like a drug addict, a tax is not going to stop smokers. It's an addiction. I don't smoke, have never smoked. I'm not a drug addict, have never used illegal drugs. But I have personal experience providing that this taxing is taxing the addiction. When I was a young child, both my mother and father were heavily addicted smokers. There are more times than I care to remember. My 5 siblings, there were 6 of us, 5 siblings and I went hungry, and not once did my mother and father prioritize food over cigarettes. Now, I don't blame them, it was an addiction. And today, if you tax it, you're not going to hurt the smokers, nor are you going to socially engineer these smokers from stopping their smoking. If the choice is milk, eggs, bread, or cigarettes, the smoker will choose cigarettes. And a group of counties in this area working with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission to form a regional board that would administer this cigarette tax. If Nelson County passes it, then you're allowing TJPDC to create a separate board, hire an administrator to collect the tax, take a percentage for administration, then disseminate the rest back to the counties. I disagree with this effort. All you're doing is you're enlarging and enriching the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. And I realize some of you have personal interest in that commission, and I surely wish you would do the right thing and not vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Pam Bryce.
I'll give you my ID as well.
You don't have to do that. No, it's just.
Yeah, I didn't need it. At the end of the day, my name is Pam Bryce, and I am running for Board of Supervisors. So I can guarantee you that I live here, but I'm not about to publicly give out my home address, although I am in Fauquier, Virginia. I will tell you that. I live on Thomas Nelson Highway, I'll tell you that. And I am publicly speaking out against this tax because I am a small business owner and I'm watching other small business owners that sell the cigarettes. They're having a hard enough time trying to staff their businesses, trying to keep their doors open. And they don't have the time or wherewithal to fill out more paperwork to pay another tax. And as a small business owner, I know that when I file my taxes, I have to show a profit at some point. And after 3 years, as a small business owner, if you can't show a profit, you have to either close your business down or you can't take those losses. So when I look at a fee of over $200,000 to join this little coalition, and while I'm hearing that we might get back 100 and some odd thousand a year, the odds of Livingston being the smallest one of the smallest ones, probably we're not gonna get more than 50,000. And if that's the case, then it would take us 5 to 6 years to recoup and start making any sort of a profit on this. So it just doesn't seem like a worthwhile investment to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Landry.
Okay, I'm Dave Landry, I live at 21 Black Walnut, and I'm opposed to the cigarette tax. I'm opposed to the cigarette tax at any rate, and I'm opposed to joining this little club even before the idea of setting a rate. If you join the club before deciding, well, we'll just decide the rate later, that's just saying you're just gonna do it anyway, okay? So don't even join the club. Why do I care? I'm not a smoker. It's not gonna cost me a penny. But the reason I care is I'm not a deadbeat. I'm not a cheapskate. I don't want somebody else who's a smoker paying for things services that I may consume. And it's like, okay, fine, it's not coming out of my pocket. Well, when I go to a restaurant with a group, I pay my part of the check. I don't skip out and expect them to pay my share of the meal. I often, if they're with people I like, I pay for the whole tab, if they like it. But in any case, if this county needs more recreational resources, that should go into the general budget if it can be justified. If we need sheriff's deputies to get a raise, that should come out of the general budget. All these reasons that were proposed in the last meeting about, oh, we got a new tax on a kid at the candy store. What can we spend it on? That's not the right way to handle taxes. If we have a need, justify the need, and then if we don't have the money in the budget to pay for those needs, then raise the general tax on our real estate or our sales tax, whichever is appropriate. When I buy gasoline for my car, I pay a fuel tax, and that goes directly to the roads. There's a connection to the tax to the purpose. If somebody thinks that the reason for this cigarette tax is to solve the problem of smoking, because it'll deter smokers, then be honest and dedicate, if you pass this tax, dedicate every penny of that revenue towards smoking cessation programs. You could have possible programs where you give people nicotine patches if they're a smoker. If this is the only plausible reason to have a cigarette tax, to actually solve the problem of smoking, okay? But if you do it for any other reason, recreation, sheriff's deputies, or something like that, then you're just being hypocritical. It's a money grab, and let's see where we can spend it. If I was a sheriff's deputy, I think I would be insulted if the only reason I deserve a raise is if they were taxing smokers. Doesn't make any sense. So, the purpose of the tax should be targeted to a problem that already exists. But you came up with a tax, and let's see, where can we spend it? Don't join this club. It's just a foot in the door to getting the tax, which any rate, even anything over zero is not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the names I have. Would anyone else like to speak at the public hearing?
Carlton Wood, 19218 Thomas Nelson Highway, Fayetteville, Virginia. I think I finally know how people, approximately 50% of the U.S. population no longer pays an income tax because they're under the barrier that requires it, the income barrier. I finally know how they feel. It's hard not to support a tax that doesn't apply to you. Since I don't smoke, the temptation is strong to support a tax because I won't end up paying it. So now I know how those people feel. But despite that temptation, I don't support this tax. And the main reason is because unless the demographics of the smoker have changed, they're generally the people at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder, and it's a very regressive tax, that being the case. And I don't like taxes in general, but I especially don't like regressive taxes. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, I will close the public hearing. And bring this to the board.
I appreciate what you said about willingness to pay taxes. That there's a positive thing for our community in terms of recreation, schools, and everything. I was a lifelong smoker until I had a stroke, in which I haven't had a cigarette since in 2 years, a couple of years now. And I do understand the economics of you make something cost more. People unlikely to do it, or less likely to do it. But I also think that so many times in our society, we treat a disease as if it's some sort of crime. We treat an addiction. We filled our jails in the 80s with people who were addicted. And smoking is a health problem. I don't deny that. And it's also incredibly regressive. You know, that people who are poor smoke cigarettes many times because it's to them, it's something they can afford to do. And they become addicted, as I was addicted to cigarettes. So I'm sure I'm surprising a few people. But I can't support this motion to join in that group. So I oppose it.
I think some pieces of this, as we, of course, look at these regional efforts, and I often find myself looking across the counties that are around us and how they act. Of course, I don't find inspiration necessarily north of us. However, I do find it interesting that, of course, Augusta County is participating. And I believe tonight, Greene County, if I'm not mistaken, should be voting on participating in this board tonight. I hate taxes. As a matter of fact, me and Mr. Parr, and of course, philosophically, we have fought to lower taxes. We've fought to eliminate taxes. We have fought, and we're about to fight on making sure that we can equalize the tax rate so that we don't have people in Schuyler paying 5 times what their market value was 4 years ago. You know, hey, enemy of the taxes, without a doubt. However, I think it is important that we be at least part of the discussion. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we are allowed to leave this organization at any time, correct, Mr. Carter?
Yes.
So if we find out, we get into this trickling path where if this is bad, this is going to be adding taxes or unnecessary taxes, and we get to set that. We can either find ourselves putting ourselves at number 0, and then all of a sudden, we'll be an area that will likely be a beacon for people to buy cigarettes or whatever, for tobacco products or nicotine products. I'm not necessarily against, participating in the discussion. If we find that we need to leave, let's leave. I've absolutely always been supportive of making sure that whatever entity we join, there is a out plan that doesn't have a huge cost to it. And from my knowledge of reading this packet, and Mr. Carter, you can correct me, staff, correct me. If we find that this is a regressive thing, that it is something we can leave. I would hate for us to be out of the conversation at the very least, to know what our neighbors are doing, to know how they're operating, to know what they're thinking of doing, because it's important that we at least be at the table to know. So I'm supportive of joining the group. I have not decided, of course, we haven't set the tax rate and don't know if we will. It probably will be 0, and we'll find out. So that's my take, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Parr, want to speak to this?
Question on we talked about the $136,000 of anticipated revenue after year 1. We talked about there's a $218,000 one-time expense startup, and then an ongoing estimate first year, $59,000, ongoing $117,000. Those last numbers are total, right? That's not $218,000 from Nelson County. Okay, just a comment was made and it confused me that I didn't think was accurate, but I just wanted to confirm that what I was thinking was right. That being said, I'll echo what Mr. Rutherford said. I am not voting on a tax. We're voting on whether or not to participate in a group. And I don't want to leave us without a seat at the table to have a conversation. So that's all this is to me, is a conversation.
Okay. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ordinance approving the formation of a joint entity to be known as the Blue Ridge Cigarette Tax Board, 2021-07. I approve joining said group. That is my motion.
It's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Grace?
Mr. Barton?
No.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Thank you, everybody who gave comments at the public hearings and during public comments, by the way.
Can I have a housekeeping question?
Certainly.
Is Rockfish Ranch have a special use permit in process? 'Cause this is the first I've heard of it.
We just checked, the planning staff sent over their agenda for the next month, or for this month, and it's not listed, so not that we're aware of.
Okay, I was just making sure.
If I may, I'm very uncertain about this, but over the weekend, I thought the property was up for sale. But I can't confirm that, but it looked like that on the internet.
Well, they definitely have an internet presence.
Yeah, I was
When
gonna say their
when you
website
Google,
existed.
They show up and
I doubt
they have a pretty expansive website.
Probably an expired listing.
As I said, I'm not sure, I'm very uncertain it's for sale, but it looked like that on the weekend.
Yeah, I do know that a site plan was received by the planning commission, but I don't know where it is in process.
I see. So they just did that.
We haven't seen it in my office yet. So.
If you could just surprise us, if you could put an inquiry out to the planning commission. Yep.
Okay. Any other business for us to take up this evening?
And that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.